Welcome to our feature interview corner. Today we're joined by a special guest pianist Park Jonghwa, Professor Park Jonghwa, who is currently Professor of Piano at the Department of Instrumental Music in the College of Music at Seoul National University. Often referred to being a musical nomad, Professor Park was born in Busan, spent his childhood in Tokyo, where he attended the Tokyo Prep School of Music. He also attended Jonghwa Middle School of Arts in Seoul, attended New England Conservatory in Boston, attended Il Fondazione per il Pianoforte, I think it's La Fondazione per il Pianoforte, Masterclass in Como in Italy, attended the Queen Sofia College of Music in Madrid in Spain, attended the Hochschule für Musik und Theater in Munich in Germany. He lived in Paris, and I think there is not one single place on this planet where he hasn't lived. Now he's back, really, but now he's back in Korea, and I'd like to welcome him. So welcome, and it's great to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
I mean, it's amazing when I just read your biography. You really have been to every single place, it seems to me, in the world, at least to all the major and important places where musicians usually like to go or dream of going, and you've really been there. How's that?
Well, thank you for having me here.
Great
Richard.
pleasure.
Excuse me. Thank you for having me here, Philip. Yes, I guess I was lucky enough to experience these places, and it was very special. From Japan to the United States to Europe, actually the music and the piano itself took me to these places, and I was led by music to these places, and also got to meet many people, and it was very special experience.
Yes. Do you have any kind of special memories, like special places that were favorites, or special people you met, like teachers or other important musicians that have influenced you?
Well, I could say that I could sort of divide this period in three stages, and it kind of falls into the place perfectly, because in Japan I finished my elementary education, which was 6 years, and when I was there I met this incredible piano teacher. Later I found out that her teachers were this Jewish Russian origin, who had the Jewish Ukrainian background, who came to Japan after the war. Instead of going to South America, Australia, other European countries, this particular pianist came to Japan. He married a Japanese lady, and he started to produce many piano students, Japanese piano students, who later will become very famous pianists who will lead the sector in Japan. And I was lucky enough to meet this lady. Her name is Eguchi Aiko, and I studied piano there. And then moved on to United States. There I lived until I finished bachelor's. From New England Conservatory College. So, in Boston, it was my formation period. And there I met Mr. Russell Sherman, who was crucial to my education in some sense. He was the most influential. And I got to experience very unique teachings of him. What he emphasized was not only piano playing, but how to observe the world.
Yes.
How to approach piano through observing other things. Macro leads to micro, and micro leads to macro.
So a great musician,
yes.
apparently. And was there maybe also a European experience that
Yes.
you'd like to highlight? Or,
And then after my formation period was over, I was lucky enough to move to Europe, performing as well as interacting with many interesting and famous pianists and musicians, and it was the most incredible time of my life, because during the 10 years that I was living in Europe, of course, I not only lived in one country, but Italy, Spain, Germany, and France. And these 4 countries I got to experience. And it was just incredible. I could say that it was the time of my life where I learned the most.
Yes.
Yes.
And just as an interesting anecdote maybe for some of our listeners, we have a common teacher
Yes.
that we both studied with. That's
Eliso
Versaladze from Russia.
Yes.
But we never happened to meet in Europe while
Yes.
we were both there, so we met in Korea. But still, that's a very strong connection, I guess.
Yes.
Well, thanks for this brief introduction into your very exciting biography. I'm sure there's a whole lot more to talk about, but I'd like to sort of divide at least a little bit of attention to your projects that you are pursuing here in Korea.
Yes.
And from what I heard, you are currently dedicating a lot of time to a new album,
Yes.
or have done so in the recent past. And maybe you'd like to introduce that album as well, and what
Yes.
this is about.
The album is called Nunaya. It's in Korean. Nunaya means big sister. It comes from one of the titles from the body of works that are in the CD, Ommaya, Nunaya. This CD is, if I must explain it simply, it's a collection of arrangement of Korean children's songs. And now, when you say children's songs, everybody imagines something that you sing at when you were a baby, very little, with your mother, with your grandmother, with your family, and that's that. But Korean children's song has some special stories with it. It brings something special. The collection of work that I handled, arranged with composers in this CD, are particularly from 20th century, where the Korea was experiencing very tumultuous period, from Japanese invasion, occupation, to Korean War, and after that, of course, reconstruction period. I'm sorry,
Yes.
rather. And in these songs, there are people's sentiment. It's embodying the zeitgeist of that period, and I thought it could be a very special project for me to approach, because as you heard from my background, I grew up mostly in the Western world, and coming back in Korea, coming back to my motherland was very strange experience. I knew I belonged here. I have Korean blood, but I somehow felt that I didn't belong. So there was this
There's
idiosyncrasy.
something cosmopolitan about you that
Yes.
you were adding to your stay in Korea,
Yes.
to the Korean blood as well. And so you're saying, if I may reword this a little, that your international experience has also influenced your interpretation of if I may call it that way, traditional Korean
Yes.
child music or nursery songs.
Of course, naturally, when I interpreted these body of work, that comes into work as well, naturally. But when we worked with composers, and when I also perform and interpret these works on the stages or in the studio, the most important thing that we put into consideration was how these works represent collective feelings, collective things. And our homework was how to bring these collective things to the personal
level.
And, we try to be as sincere as possible, and as sincere as possible to these factors and elements, that these are collective things. It belong to many people. It belong to people. And the expression of it, how to express that when you perform was very difficult.
And you're touching a very sensitive theme here.
Yes.
It's both about impressions that you received
Yes.
and then expressing them,
Yes.
if I again may call it that way, impressionism and expressionism
Yeah.
a certain way. I'm sure many of our listeners, if not all of them, would very much like to listen into the album a little bit. And
Yes.
I have a playlist here. I see 9 pieces. That's probably the total amount of pieces. Unfortunately, we don't have time for all 9 of them, but is there a piece, or are there many maybe 2 or 3 of those pieces that you would like to pick and present to our listeners?
Maybe we could listen to 엄마야 누나야.
To the first one.
Yes.
Is there a little story to this piece, or a little background information that you'd like to share?
Yes, as I said earlier, these songs embody the zeitgeist of a very difficult period that Korea experienced. And this piece is composed on top of a poem. Composed, written by Kim So-wol, very famous Korean poet, and it just says that 엄마야 누나야, mom,
big sister.
big sister, let's go live by the river, and it describes how pretty the river is, how beautiful the nature is, and so on and on and on.
And probably how nice and beautiful the relationship between 엄마 and 누나.
Yes, the family. Yes, to be with family, and
Yes.
and this in the end resembles and symbolizes peace.
Yes.
But you have to look into. You have to. Excuse me.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. It reflects
Yes.
peace,
But you have to.
but
You have,
you have to
Yes.
see the bigger picture
Yes.
as well.
You have
the
to take a-
historic picture.
yes, you have to take attention to when this piece was composed.
Yes,
And when this piece was composed was during
It was not
Japanese
a peaceful
occupation.
time,
It was in
yes.
peaceful time.
absolutely.
Yes.
So the historic background. That's a whole lot of information. I suggest we just dive into it and listen to it, and after that, if we still have time, we talk a little more, maybe about 1 or 2 other songs from the album. So there it is. Park Jonghwa presenting his album, and the album's name is 누나야, and from that album we're going to listen to the first song called 엄마야 누나야.